Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Tank Talk Podcast, your number one podcast in the universe. And I will be happy to report that 3 seconds before we hit the play button, John, you said to me, I have no idea where this one is going. I have nothing in my head.
Mm-hmm.
That's reassuring for everybody here. And I would like to concur. I also have no idea where this is going and have nothing in my head. And so, what are we calling this? This episode?
It's going to be fill in the blank number. It's some number. Things all people should know about fish keeping. I don't know if that number is going to be 2 things or 29 things. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So maybe we'll have solved that, although I don't think I'm going to have it in me to keep track of all the things we say unless it's less than 3. But yeah, some number of things that people should know. And what will be really nice if we miss something and you think people should know something about fish keeping that we didn't talk about, leave that in the comments section below. But before we get into it, we do need to thank our channel sponsor, Fritz Aquatics. They are awesome. They do lots of cool things. They have really nice medications like this Copper Safe for ick. If you've got a really bad infestation, John's looking for stuff, but I am more prepared. They've got these awesome fresh water and saltwater test kits that are super easy to use. What else do they have? I don't know why I have all this stuff laying around because it's stuff that I use. I've got aquarium salt. They have their patented live nitrifying bacteria. We love Fritz. Fritz Aquatics has been sponsored, a partner of the Tank Talk podcast from the beginning and part of KG Tropicals and Primetime Aquatics. And they go out of their way to support the aquarium hobby. So we thank them for their support and check them out. Go to keepfishkeeping.com. There's all kinds of cool stuff there. Lots of useful aquarium additives, medications. So, okay. Oh boy, I gotta tell you. So things fish keepers should know. You got a brand new person in there, or maybe not a brand new person, maybe someone who's been at it a little while. What are we telling people? What do we tell them? Like, hey man, these are some things that will really help you. I'm assuming we're gonna be talking about things that will help them be successful, right? That's the point.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
That was not the first thing that popped into my head, but
or if you just go with it, man, maybe we're just going to be scatterbrained all over the place.
I mean, the very first thing, like if I run into people that I meet for the first time that are not fish keepers, they're just random people that I meet, and the topic will come up, what do you do for a living? And I tell them, and then they're like, oh really, that's crazy, and I was thinking about getting an aquarium. If somebody was that kind of a person, was like, I'm thinking about getting into this. I've thought about it. I had a tank when I was a kid and thinking about getting it again. What do you think I should know? The very first thing I would say is it's very addicting and it could become a problem. Almost like a drug addiction. Look at Jason's basement that he's in. Look at this. I'm not saying what you have is a problem. I'm saying
what's a problem?
It can absolutely take over your life, and you can have buildings on your property that are completely consumed by it. Now, this is what I do for a living, so I have a good excuse, but it is very addicting. You're going to find, I want to keep that fish, but it won't go with my fish. That one eats plants. That one gets too big, whatever it is. And that's going to lead to more tanks, and it's going to lead to the inevitable multi-tank syndrome. I don't know anybody that's ever been able to avoid multiple tank syndrome. It happens to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only the multiple tank syndrome, but the multiple, oh my gosh, I took this way too far syndrome, which results in, you and I have heard this, especially going to the aquashellas throughout the years. Yeah, I got a betta tank, and then I got 10 tanks, and then I had 15. And then you see that same person a couple of years later, like, yeah, I kind of back down a little bit. I'm at like four now, and I'm in a good place right now. So yeah, it is really easy to get carried away with this hobby. The one thing I would probably tell that person is, okay, if you're thinking about getting a hobby, and for experienced fish keepers alike, the number one thing I always say is have patience. If you have patience, you will be successful in this hobby. And if you don't, you're going to run into problems and make a lot of mistakes and do a lot of things that were 100% avoidable had you just taken a step back, take a breath, think about what you want to do, and figure out how to do it appropriately, right? The right way to do things. Patience means doing your research, right? Looking up what you actually want to keep and the things you want to do, make sure that it's actually a good idea, right? So, patience.
Yeah, that's that's all I got. I don't have anything more. No, I'm just joking. I'm out. It's already we're
Yeah.
5 minutes into this.
Yeah.
I'm
The
already
one
out.
thing you need to know.
That's right. Patience is absolutely critical. But the other thing, and again, I'm taking the approach of somebody that's never done this, or maybe they had a turtle tank when they were a kid and they think they know what they're doing. Um, this is not a decoration. That
Mm.
would be the next thing that I would say to them. Yeah, they're pretty and they're neat and they're fancy and they're cool, but you have to understand this is not a set it and forget it kind of a hobby unless you're uber wealthy and you can put in all of the systems and all of that kind of stuff to make the tank take care of itself. I don't know anybody that's that way. So you're going to do work with this. This is not buying an art piece that you just sit there and admire. You're going to be working, and the more you suffer from multiple tank syndrome, the more work you're going to be doing. Yes, there are tricks and things that you can do to make less work for yourself and make it easier, but you will be working. If you're afraid of that, then just this might not be the hobby for you. Go ride a bike or something. Go throw a rock. You might not be ready to keep an aquarium.
Yeah. And along those lines, it's not necessarily that you are a fish keeper, you are an ecosystem manager, right? That is really what you are. People, fish keepers are not fish keepers, they're ecosystem managers. And some ecosystems take less management than others. Usually that comes with more experience. But again, with that patience aspect and doing the research, you will not make mistakes like, hey, you know what? You really need to learn about this thing called the nitrogen cycle. You need that. You have to have that information. If you learn what that means and how to avoid the ammonia spikes and nitrite spikes, guess what? You're going to have a lot more success than somebody who's like, hey, yeah, I went to PetSmart. I bought that 20-gallon kit. I filled it up. I came back that same day, later that evening, and I packed it full of fish. And then within 2 weeks, you're like, why did they all die? Because you didn't have patience and you didn't do your research and you have no idea what this thing called the nitrogen cycle is and how to avoid these horrible chemicals that wind up in your aquarium.
It's very true. And I've said it many times on this podcast. I think I was at least 5, 6 years deep into this lifestyle that we live before I even realized that that was a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about 1993 to 1998. We didn't have access to the information that we do now. The only information we had was the old timer behind the counter at the pet store, or, the if you happen to have friends that were doing this, but then you were reliant on, does your friend even know what he's talking about? So, but with the unlimited access to information that we have now, anybody should be prepared. And, the nitrogen cycle should be the very first thing that you grasp. It's one of those things. You went to college because you're smart. I didn't. So, when I
Let's
first started
not
hearing,
confuse education with intelligence. Those are very different things.
I don't think anybody's watching or listening to this podcast and doesn't know who the smart one is. But when I was introduced to this back in the day, I remember being so intimidated by not the aquarium hobby, but the nitrogen cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that sounds way too sciencey for me. I'm not a nerd. I don't know these things.
Yeah.
But once I learned it, it was like, oh, that's as easy as breathing. Like, that's not even that complicated of a thing. And that's way back in the day. Again, when I didn't get it pounded into my head like it is now, it was very easy to learn. And now it's even way easier. So, yeah, there's no excuse to not have that.
Yeah. Yep. And the other big thing I would say is, and this is just as much for experienced fish keepers as beginners, Because had the experienced fish keepers learned this as beginners, they would have saved themselves continuing problems. This wonderful concept called quarantining your fish. How about that? Again, that takes patience, so it all goes back to patience. Quarantine your fish, because when you buy new fish, there is a significant likelihood in fish keeping that the new fish that you're getting, especially if you bought them from a pet store, nothing against pet stores, they do a great job, or at least they try to. But as the fish go through the chain of distribution, the more they have, more places that they stop at, the higher the likelihood that they get sick. And you bring them home and you throw them in your display tank, and now every fish is sick, and you wind up losing the new fish plus the fish that you had that were previously healthy. So quarantine your fish. Take the extra time, the effort, the money, and the space to get a little tank, set it aside, get a cycled sponge filter, put your fish in there for 4 weeks. I know it sounds like forever, but again, if you have patience, you're going to avoid a lot of potential problems.
Patience. I think patience is going to be the word that we use more than any other word in this entire conversation. Um, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think perfect world, everybody quarantines everything. I've never met a person, though, in my life that has two aquariums. One is their display and the other is their quarantine. I think it's a hard sell, and I understand it for somebody that is entertaining the idea of getting into this hobby, and we're telling them things that they need to know. I'm not saying it's wrong. Of course it's right. But I think the person's like, wait a second. So I just wanted to buy that 20-gallon kit, but what you're telling me is I got to buy two now? Like, I don't know about all of that. Of course I know, and you know, everybody's that's been keeping fish for long enough has had an experience where they said, daggone, I wish I would have quarantined those fish. If only I had, we would have been in a better situation. But that one, everybody should absolutely know about that one. But if I'm trying to convince somebody, hey, yeah, join this lifestyle, it's great, that's going to be a hard sell. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. But what I will say is you'll learn.
That's you'll just learn. It. You're going to learn it one way or another. You're going to learn it the hard way. You're going to learn it the easy way. And here's the thing that I hear people say that a lot, especially with some of the videos that I've produced about water parameters and quarantining. You're going to scare people out of the hobby. Good. I'm not an aquarium disciple that is trying to recruit everybody to become an aquarium fish keeper. I don't care. I want to state that right now, right here. My primary goal is not to get as many people into the hobby as possible. It never has been, never will be. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. My primary goal is to have those people who are interested in fish keeping do it successfully at the benefit maximally and primarily for the fish. That's my goal. And so therefore, if I say you should be quarantining for 4 weeks, and if that's going to drive people out of the hobby, I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. It makes me ecstatic that I have now driven people out of the hobby that won't quarantine, that won't understand the nitrogen cycle, that don't have patience, that are going to go to the store and mix all these fish together that shouldn't be together. And next thing you know, you got a bunch of dead fish. I don't want them in the hobby. I can't make it any clearer for you or anybody else. I don't care. I hope that we lose, if we're losing the people who don't quarantine and don't do the nitrogen cycle and don't care. If we lost 50% of the people in the hobby, I don't care, because guess what? Those people are only going to be in the hobby for 4 to 6 months, which is the average time that someone is in the hobby, because they have all these problems, because they didn't do the things. But all they really did was kill a bunch of fish, aggravate themselves, and then leave anyway. I'm cool with losing every single one of those people. That's all I want to say about that.
Well, if 3 people are still listening, let me talk to them. No, I could not agree more. I mean, we had to rebrand our website back in 2020 because I was an idiot and let somebody swoop in and steal kgtropicals.com from me. And it was a no-brainer, keepfishkeeping.com. It's a difficult domain to say, and it's kind of a pain in the butt, and it's a tongue twister. But my job is to keep the ones that are in the hobby in the hobby. I'm not recruiting. I'm not going to stand on the corner and start to try to recruit new fish keepers. If you're interested in getting involved in this hobby, I do want to tell you what you need to know to be successful, at least what from my experiences. But no, I'm not going to go out there and try to recruit people. I just want to keep the ones that are here in, which I know is your goal too. And my next thing that just popped into my head, thankfully, because I was getting nervous, it has to do with keeping people in the hobby, but also possibly persuading people like you just did so eloquently to not get in this hobby to begin with. I'll tell you a story. At an Aquashella, I don't know, you might have been standing right next to me because you almost always were when I was at Aquashellas, and I didn't mean for that to sound weird. It was you and I hang out the whole time at Aquashellas. There was a lady that came up to me and we were talking because that's what happens, and telling me about their tanks and stuff like that. And she was telling me about a fish, and forgive me, I do not remember what kind of fish it was, but this was an older lady that was telling me about a fish. And then she was telling me that that fish had passed, and she started crying, talking about that fish dying. And I've never done that. I mean, I'm not trying to act like I'm some kind of tough guy. I'm as soft as they come, but I've never cried over a fish. But the reason why I bring that up is because this is going to happen. I'm not saying you're going to cry over it, but fish dying is part of the deal. It sucks. I've never met a person in my life who has been keeping fish for X amount of time and has never, unless they just set their first tank up yesterday, I've never met somebody that's never had a fish die. And anybody that would ever come to me and say, I've been keeping fish for 10 years, I've had to get rid of fish because they never die, that person's a liar. It's going to happen. And if you're somebody like me, I am this way. Like, to me, when a dog dies, it's like losing a family member. I mean, and I know that's not even being overly dramatic. We all love our dogs, and you know, Lisa and I both are just, we go overboard when it comes to our emotion that we attach to mostly four-legged animals. With fish, it used to bother me a lot more than it does now, but I've had so many thousands of fish in my 30-something years of keeping them that I'm kind of desensitized to it, as hard as it is for me to say that. But if you're somebody that's super soft, and I don't mean to say soft in a derogatory way, I mean like you are really, really emotional about these kind of things, you might not want to be involved in this hobby because it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen within the first couple of months of your joining this hobby. If you're not ready for that emotionally, you might want to stay away. I'm not trying to convince people not to keep fish. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think both you and I, we've been at it so long, and I'm sure a lot of you watching or listening to this podcast right now, same thing. When you've had hundreds, thousands of fish, they're all going to eventually pass at some point. And if you're going to get caught up in every guppy and neon, I get these, I'm sure you do too, these messages, frantic messages all the time. Hey, I bought 10 neons and one of them is looking bad. What should I do? Get rid of it? I'm not treating a tank for $1, $2 neon or $3. I know it sounds bad, and I'm not uncaring, but I'm not treating a single $3 neon. I'm not treating a guppy. I'm just going to be like, okay, that fish is got some serious issues. I'm not dumping a bunch of meds in my tank for that one fish, because by doing that, I'm exposing all my other fish to stressors and meds and possibly doing bad things to the beneficial bacteria. And if it's got something that is, okay, we'll put it in a hospital tank, and then I'm treating that hospital tank and I'm dumping $30 of meds for a $3 fish. I know it sounds horrible. I'm saying this out loud, and I know that some of you, and maybe rightfully so, are saying, this guy is cold. I'm not trying to be, but you get thousands of fish. You're like, okay, now, if it's something like John's got those big Oscars, the Bisher, or like my big Geo when I lost, I would have, you just tell me how to save that fish, and I'll spend the money, right? So yeah, there are exceptions to that. Some of the big fish that you had, my Raphael cat has been with me now for, I think it's 18 years, 17, 18 years. If I see something wrong with him, I'm like, oh, hold on, man. We gotta do everything in my power to do that. $2 guppy. It's not about the price. It's just they only live for a couple years anyway. So that's the other thing
Right.
too is understand. And I think the point you were getting to is you're going to lose fish, and a lot of times it's not anything that you did. The fish just have bad genetics. They could just be old, and that's just it. It's their time,
Yep.
and you have to recognize that.
I do think, and I don't necessarily understand the psychology behind this, but I do think that bigger fish, for some reason, affect us when they go more than the little ones.
Sure.
I mean, you mentioned my Oscars and bikers here. I call them bikers because it sounds cooler. We had a red Oscar in here that was a good solid 10 inches long, and I didn't have him as long as the other two, but I had him for 5 years, and he just like one day didn't look right. The next day he was dead. And like it happened so fast. And I was upset about that, but I wasn't like shut down for a week like I would be if one of my dogs died, you know? But I would have definitely done, and we tried, we did. Lisa is the one that handles our sick fish and stuff like that. She immediately took him out, put him in a 29-gallon tank by himself and tried to nurse him back to health. But within 24 hours, he was gone. And it did affect me, but you know, we have hundreds and hundreds of fish in this fish house, and they die.
Yeah.
And when they're little, you know, rasboras or, you know, one of my yellow labs or something like that, it's a different thing than if it's a big fish that I don't know. And it doesn't even matter the amount of time that I've had them. It's like, for some reason, a little fish just doesn't affect me the way a big one would. And with African cichlids in particular, I mean, my goodness, like you better be able to tolerate fish death because it just comes with the territory with African cichlids. So I've really become desensitized to that, but I don't know. I don't even know. It just seems weird to me. The bigger fish, they have a bigger effect when they pass than the little ones.
There's no doubt about it. And most larger fish have what we call a personality. They interact with their owners a little bit more. They know their owners. They get excited around feeding time. They just seem to have a way of communicating. If you've got that nano tank behind me here, the Nano 125, there's probably 30 green neons in there. I don't even notice when they're gone because they just get eaten up by all the scavenger fish, the bristlenose plecos and the snails and stuff that are in there. So it's not like I'm like, I went from 30 to 29, you know, and even I got 6 peacock gudgeons in there. If I lost one, I'd be like, all right, well, there's now 5, right? So, and that's part of it too, because you just have so many of them. So I don't know, maybe it's the wrong way to look at it, but it's what we do. So the other thing too is both for beginners and experienced fish keepers alike, be very careful when gathering information about fish keeping. And we have done so many videos about the subject because you can have people giving decent information, but doing it in a context that you don't fully appreciate or understand, and then try to replicate what they're doing, not having that same ecosystem or setup, and wind up with near disastrous results.
Oh, it's so true. You know, I'm guilty of falling down rabbit holes, and I'm guilty of looking for information and getting validation. And once I get the validation, I move on. I don't need to, you know, I can crawl out of that rabbit hole. But this particular hobby, I don't think there's a better example of one where you should be watching and watching and watching. I'm not saying watch all the KG Tropicals videos. That would be a humongous mistake. You should be watching mine and prime times. And I'm not being self-deprecating when I say that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, if you only watch my stuff, you're only getting my opinion. Right. If you only watch Jason's stuff, you're only getting his opinion. This is a hobby that's based off of experiences, and my experiences are very different than yours. I live in North Carolina. You live in Illinois. Water is very different. You know, we do things a different way. So to get that one piece of information that was the information that you wanted to hear to validate what it is that you want to do, and you run with that, could be absolutely catastrophic. And you're right. This has been something we've talked about a lot.
I still get comments on a video. I did a video and the title was "Sponge Filters Are the Worst." That was the title. And I outlined why sponge filters can be a horrible decision. You would still, I still get comments. You would think that I just kicked somebody's newborn baby right in the mouth because people take that so personally. And it's like, time out. Here you are leaving this because you're a sponge filter disciple. Now I've got an entire fish room filled with sponge filters, right? I when this had 80 tanks in here, we probably were running 200 sponge filters for years. I use them. I understand them, but to get so caught up in a certain way of fish keeping that when any time anybody says points out what I think are very obvious negatives, because there are drawbacks to anything you do in fish keeping, and you take that so personally, like you're like I personally insulted their intelligence and their whole being of life. First of all, if your being of life is connected to whether or not you use sponge filters in an aquarium, your life sucks. All right, I'm
It's
not
time to
afraid to say it.
reevaluate.
Yeah, your life is in a bad spot. You need to reevaluate every single thing about what you're doing. So let's not get so attached. I have an iPhone. When people are like iPhones are horrible, you should have a
Oh,
Galaxy. I'm like, I don't care, whatever. I like it, and you can like your stupid phone. It's worse, and I know that, and so I'm confident in my iPhone. But the point is, when you make fun of the car I drive, or the brand, or the iPhone, or the type of filter I use, I don't really care because my life is not connected to the things that I happen to find provide a value to me. And so, my suggestion to all of you out there is when somebody points out that something that you're doing in fish keeping has disadvantages, consider them and then say, you know what? Maybe they're right. However, I am willing to live with those disadvantages or potential drawbacks because I find the advantages to be more compelling. That's all. And I think that would be a really healthy thing to do in fish keeping, just generally speaking, unless, of course, the thing that we're talking about is actually detrimental to the ecosystem and the fish itself.
right. You're not going to get me to stop making fun of you for your choices in vehicles. I mean, you went from the manliest man of pickup truck to a. I'm not even going to talk about it.
I went from a Toyota Tundra to a Subaru Outback Wilderness. And I think that that particular car, listen, you make fun of me. My kids make fun of me. I don't care because that is the finest, and I have driven many, many cars in my life. That is one of the best cars I have ever driven when it comes to comfort and all-wheel drive and everything. When you put it all together, it is the best car I've ever owned. And so you can make fun of me, and I accept that, and you can call me all the names, and I
I
understand
will.
why, but I don't care because when I drive down the street and I'm super comfortable and I'm enjoying life, I'm fine.
I'll just continue to drive up next to you in my full size pickup truck, 4-wheel drive V8, and I'll look down at you and I'll just give you a little laugh because no, I'm kidding. Hey, listen, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that a lot of that you and I see eye to eye on because of our age.
Yeah.
We're older. We're both senior citizens. We both get the discounts. Not yet, but and so we've learned like what this person thinks means absolutely nothing. If it's my immediate family member or something like that, you know, it might sting a little bit. But I think we live in a world where social media has a lot to do with that. And I mean, let's be honest. I'm not going to name names because I'm not trying to start a war, and this guy is a friend. But there is a particular YouTuber who would tell you that a sponge filter is better than any other filtration device in the world. And mainly it's because he sells them. And so I don't blame him for saying that. And in certain situations, he's right. Sponge filters are the best for fish room situations like you're talking about, something like that. And so they, for what they are, they're absolutely the right choice. And so people hear that they have a personal connection with him because of what happens with social media. And so now they feel just as passionate that sponge filters are the best. And to hear you say, oh, they've got their downsides. No, how dare you? I don't care how experienced you are. I don't care because I believe sponge filters are the best. So you must just be an idiot. You know, it's like just get a few more years on you. You'll figure it out. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter what somebody else says. Who cares?
Yep.
Let it go.
Yep.
Were you going to say something else before? Because I got another one that's a big one.
Bring
That
it.
sounded. I did not mean for that to sound as weird as it sounded. I think this is something that there will be people that will argue, and I love it because they're wrong, and I know I'm right. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from, what country you live in, what type of fish keeping you're doing. Fish keeping is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, there's ways to do it cheaper, but this is not an inexpensive hobby at all. Particularly when you're just starting out and you don't really know what works and what doesn't. You're going to go through a lot of trial and error in this hobby. You're going to buy things and you're going to use it for a month and then end up just sitting it on a shelf. And because you're a fish keeper, you're not going to throw it away because we all hoard everything, and it's going to sit there forever and you're not going to use it and you're going to waste that money. Even with that though, even if you don't do that, you're going to buy a light, and then eventually you're going to want a better light, and then you're going to want a better light, and you want to upgrade your filtration. And when you start talking about upgrading filtration, they get really, really expensive. It's multiple tank syndrome. I got to try these fish. I want to try those plants. I need this special light for those plants. It's expensive. I don't care who you are. And I will say that to your face. I will argue to the death that this is an expensive hobby.
Yep.
Be ready for that.
And when you try to make it inexpensive, there's always trade-offs. And just, again, be honest with yourself. And it's okay to make those trade-offs. So for instance, hey, I want some fish tanks, but I don't have money to spend on an expensive stand, so I'm going to use cinder blocks and 2x4s. Does it work? Absolutely. Is it going to hold your tank up for as long as you have that tank? 100%. Of all the options that you could choose, is it the worst looking option out there? Also, yes. That's okay. So what? That's not an insult. That's not saying what you've done is a bad idea. Maybe you're a 16-year-old kid. Mom and dad said, hey, you know what? Yeah, you can have that 55-gallon tank, but I'm not giving you any money for it. And all you've got is like, hey, I found this 55-gallon tank. Somebody gave it to me, and I'm going to put some sponge filters in there. And somebody gave me an air pump. Throw a shop light on there. I don't have any money for a stand. I don't have a piece of furniture. So boom, I bought some cinder blocks and 2x4s, and now I'm good. Fine. Maybe you're somebody who's like, I just don't have a lot of money to spend on this stuff, and that's the way I'm going to deal with it. Also okay. But cheap doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. It's not always going to be the best looking. You can put a shop light. I can put a shop light on these 75 gallons, and I have these AI blades that are like insanely priced at $400 and something a piece. I'm going to put shop lights on there. Am I going to get the same color spectrum? Not even close. Are the plants going to respond the same way? No. Are the fish tanks going to look the same? No. Does the shop light work? Absolutely. So if you want to do all the ways to save money, great. But there's almost not a single money saving tip and I've given a million of them, and so have you, that doesn't have drawbacks over doing perhaps the more traditional solution for that aquarium.
Yeah, I personally take offense to the cinder block thing because I've got tanks set up that way right now
Yeah,
as
and
we
they're
speak.
ugly. Kidding.
They are. No, I mean, I don't know if it's the ugliest thing in the world.
No.
I think some of those old wrought iron, I don't know. I've never really been into those Gothic style ones from way, way back in the day. I don't even know if anybody even has those anymore. But no, I mean, I do have some sitting on cinder blocks, and it's because it's for the business. Like, I don't care what it looks like. I don't think it looks horrible, but it's not as bad. You made me, you hurt my feelings a little bit.
That's
by
good. I was
talking about
trying. I was trying to personally insult everybody who has cinder blocks and 2x4s. And we've got names for you. I'll make a T-shirt with what we're calling people with cinder block and 2x4 stands these days. But no, but
Oh,
like
boy.
you said, it's fine because it's got a very specific purpose. Now, I'm just saying of the other choices out there, right? I mean, your stands that you've built by hand, blow those out of the water. No doubt about it, right? If you went to the store and bought like one of the decorative stands, it's not even close. Yeah, I guess the wrought iron stand, that's a great point. You know, that those two are pretty close, but you could go and get the industrial steel stands and still kind of spruce those up and they can look okay, right? But again, the point is, just be aware that when you're saving money, there could be drawbacks there. That's why it's saving you money, because it's not as optimized sometimes as other methods you may or may not choose.
I do, and this is only because you hurt my feelings there. I do want to push back a little bit, and it's not disagreeing with you at all. It's more, I want to make sure people didn't get led a certain direction by you and your very hurtful statements that you made.
Well, that's what you get when you make fun of my Subaru.
Everybody that's watching this is like, he's a grown man in his 50s driving a Subaru. He deserved that ridicule. But no, it seemed like you, and you didn't do this on purpose, but you kind of jumped from cinder block 2x4s to AI blade light. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot in between.
Oh, heck yeah. There's a gradient.
There's a lot in between that can do very well for you that is way more affordable than the AI blades or the
100%.
Plant Pros like I have. And there's a lot that look really, really good that are much more affordable. I don't want to say cheap. Yeah. There's a lot of cheap stuff out there that looks terrible too. But I just didn't want people to be scared, as if there is somebody who's going to be watching this that's never had an aquarium before. I suppose it's possible, but I don't want them thinking it has to be the highest end of high end in order to be able to get into this. But I'm the one that said it at first, that fish keeping is expensive. Even if you're going with that middle of the road or even a little lower than middle of the road level equipment, you're still spending a lot of money. And that 55-gallon tank that you're setting up on the cinder blocks that your mom picked up for you in her Subaru, because, you know, that's a mom car, that's not going to be the only tank that you have. Yeah. This is, like I said, you're going to get addicted. You're going to have more. And so the volume of tanks, and as you add more, and that tank needs a light and that tank needs a filter, it does get very, very expensive. So,
you know, that brings up a great point, because what you're probably going to need is an overcompensating buddy to drive his pickup truck that he almost never actually needs or uses to get you those 125-gallon tanks that could easily be transported in a minivan, but he had to get the big truck, and he can bring those over you, getting his 10 miles per gallon, drop those bad boys off and take off, buy him lunch because he needs it. And, you know, maybe a sticker that says America on the back, and, you know,
hey,
you'll
listen,
be okay.
I live on a farm. I don't know what you're talking about. The bed of my truck always has something in it.
I know you do.
You have lost your mind. You're not going to win this argument, my friend. There is not a person. No, but it's fun though. I mean, I haven't seen the Subaru. I cried a little when you said you got rid of the Tundra, because I thought you were sacrificing your manhood. But you know, hey, whatever makes you happy makes me happy. That's really all that matters.
Now that's what we like to hear.
Even though it is hilarious, and I think you made a mistake. But I wouldn't have done that, but that doesn't mean it's a mistake. So I shouldn't have said it that way. But anyway, I think I've come up with like the last 4 things. So it's your turn, because I'm going to look like an idiot and there's going to be dead air if I have to come up with the next thing.
So things that fish keepers should know, huh? Why don't we talk a little bit about, be careful when you are mix and matching your fish, right? We've talked about this in the past, but it's more than just, will this fish fit in this size aquarium? There's lots of other components to consider, such as activity level and how many of these fish do you need, and are they going to be compatible with other fish? Because you can get into a whole lot of bad situations by not researching your fish and just be like, that looks cool, let me go grab that.
So true. So true. And it is a mistake. If we were to do we may already have, I think we have. If we were to do an episode on the most common mistakes that are made by fish keepers, that's number 1 on every list. And if it's not number 1 on the list, then whoever made the list doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah. We've all done it. I've done it. I'm not proud of it. And I still feel guilt to this day over it. I mean, I know I was talking earlier about how I'm desensitized to to that kind of stuff. Well, that's just flat out animal abuse. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that. It just is. And to know that I was guilty of that, it makes me sad that I did that. But in my defense, I was 19 and dumb. And as far as my intelligence level, things aren't a whole lot better at 51, but at least I know not to put Oscars in a 29-gallon tank like I did back then.
Yeah. And there is no excuse now with the internet and all the information available, as opposed to back when, you're talking about 1990s. I started in the 70s and 80s and 90s. You just kind of depended on the people who were working at the fish store to give you direction. Sometimes they just didn't ask any questions, and you didn't necessarily ask any questions either. So you'd come home with this new fish and be like, I once had an Oscar in a 35-gallon hex. So before it moved to a 75-gallon, I'm like, what was I think? I had in that 35-gallon hex at one point, I had an Oscar, not full grown, not even close, a Jack Dempsey and a convict cichlid. The Oscar eventually moved out, but the Jack Dempsey and the convict cichlid lived in a 35-gallon hex, and somehow they were fine together. And there were like swordtails in there and a gourami, the weirdest mix of fish of all times, and somehow they all managed to get along. Is that a good idea? No. Should anybody be doing that? Absolutely not. Those fish require a much larger tank. I don't know why they didn't completely attack each other and wind up with one fish in the entire tank. I can't tell you why, but do the research on the fish. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems, and it's really on you at this point. If you have compatibility issues, now it's one thing if, hey, you know what? I put these fish together. It seemed like it should have gone together. The employees told me it would be fine. I heard on the internet it should be okay. And then you have a problem. That's not you. That happens. But if you just through ignorance and not doing, just impulse buying, that's kind of on you. And you got to figure out what to do with that.
I too have made that mistake with a Jack Dempsey, and I'm going to defend my mistake and your mistake. The same 29-gallon that I had an Oscar in, I had a Jack Dempsey in. But Jack Dempsey's I love. I think they're awesome fish. And maybe it's because they're named after the boxer. I don't know. I don't even know if they're named after the boxer, but I would assume since it's, the same name. Yeah. Jack Dempsey's, they're like discus. They just don't move. In my experience, maybe I'm wrong. But every Jack Dempsey I've ever seen has just been a fish that just sits there.
Yeah.
Whereas you're watching this video here, and I've constantly got Oscars back and forth and bikers back and forth. I've never known Jack Dempseys to be that way, not even at feeding time. So if they're just going to sit there having them in a smaller tank, maybe you should feel a little less bad about it. But still, nobody should do that. But if you're going to, a Jack Dempsey would be the right one to do that with. And convicts don't get huge. So I'm trying to defend you here. I've done a lot of making fun of you in this episode. Yeah. Well deserved. And I just want to, we got another episode to record after this one. I don't want you to be too mad at me.
And it carried right over. Other things that fish keepers should know. We mentioned this in a couple of previous videos, but keep your tanks where you're going to enjoy them and where you're going to see them. Don't put them off in a corner somewhere in a room that you're not really in all that much, or in a basement that you very rarely go into, because you're going to neglect those tanks. And those fish are eventually going to get neglected. Maybe not right away when it's still new, fresh, and exciting. But after a while, you're just going to be like, I have no reason to go into that space other than to feed fish, take care of aquarium. You're either going to neglect the fish, or you're going to get to a point where I don't want to do this anymore because it's just more of a hassle. I'm not really getting any benefit out of this.
Yeah. I sound like a broken record at this point, but I've said it so many times. My job that I had before being a crazy person and going on YouTube full time was, I went to people's houses every day, 8 to 10 houses a day to fix furniture. I would see aquariums every single day in people's houses. And the overwhelming majority were the water was this far down from the frame, and, the fish was just sitting there miserable. I mean, that is probably the most common mistake, is buying an aquarium, not realizing that it requires work, just having it sit there, and before you know it, it becomes a hassle, and it's for sale on Facebook Marketplace for $10. I mean, it happens. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. We'll fight about that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know how to word this because I don't want to give the impression that I don't want kids in the hobby.
Mhm.
I absolutely want kids in the hobby. I've got 5 kids, 4 grandkids. I love kids. None of my kids are kids anymore, but um, if you're a parent watching this and you've never kept an aquarium before, but your little one wants one, and you're doing the right thing by watching this to learn what you might need to know if you're going to get your little one an aquarium, I'm just going to say it. I've been in this hobby for a very long time. I've known a lot of people in this hobby. And to find a young child, particularly in 2025, that is 8 years old and is going to obsess over their aquarium, take care of their aquarium, do all the research, learn everything, that kid is a diamond in the rough. You're as lucky or as likely to win the lottery as you are to have a kid like that. I would go into it as a parent with the understanding that you're most likely going to be taking care of this aquarium at some point. So if you are looking at this, is this something that my little one is capable of handling? Just understand, yeah, it is, but they probably won't. So you're going to be stuck with it. You probably should be as excited about this hobby as your little one is. And just look at it as something that you can do together that's not involving a screen or a follower count. It's just something that you do together, and have it be something you do together, because most likely it's going to be yours.
That, I mean, my kids were young and they were into fish when we had the fish tanks down here. And they, like I said, they helped. And they were really excited when we got the fish room going, but they quickly converted from helping because it was fun to becoming actual employees of Prime Time Aquatics, and would have never stepped foot down here unless they were being paid. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I didn't do it for them. I tell people all the time, same as you, if you're getting an animal for a child, expect that once the thing is no longer new, the child will, if not lose interest completely, will certainly temper their interest in whatever it is that they're doing. That's okay. That's expected. Kids do that. That's just part of who they are. They explore their world around them. They get super interested in something. And then just as fast as they got obsessed with it, they're out and on to the next thing. And then you're left with this aquarium. And it is on you as the adult to recognize that and to also deal with it. Never, ever, ever, ever buy a living thing because you hope to teach your child a sense of responsibility. Don't do that. There are many ways to teach your child how to be responsible, whether it's through chores or schoolwork or some type of other discipline, sports. A living animal is not one of those things. Do it because as a family, you've decided we want to care for this thing, and then demonstrate what it means to care for that living thing. And hopefully they want to be part of that, but don't put that all on your kid. That is not fair to them.
Yeah, like I said, it's inevitably going to end up being yours anyway. And I've never understood, because Lisa and I have tried really hard. Like I said, we've got 5 kids. Exactly 0 of them have any interest at all in aquariums. My oldest has 3 children, and they have a tank for the kids. And I'm not going to talk about what it is because they're breaking all the rules, but it's okay because at least they're in the hobby. They have a tank for their 4-year-old, and that's, other than that, the other ones, I mean, one of my youngest son is on a ship with the Navy right now, so he can't have one, but everybody else, they're all adults. They live in their own places, and none of them have any interest in aquariums, which is wild to me, but it's kind of sad because like they don't come here and want to come and look at the fish room and stuff like that. It makes me sad.
I am convinced that once Eli, because Luke is done, he's in college, he's got a couple years left, and his responsibilities down here ended probably a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer. Eli's down here, he's taking care of everything. But I asked him, I go, so when you eventually have your own place, are you going to get tanks? And they both say, well, yeah, one, I'm not doing what you did and, spent my life working, cleaning. but I would probably do one. I ask, well, what kind of fish? And they have answers. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, they're not trying to do this in any way, shape, or form. So um, I'm sure when Eli is done, he's probably going to be partially relieved when he transfers to his college that he wants to go to in about a year or so. But that's his job. That's how he makes money. So he's thankful for it now because it's basically you can work whenever you want, just get the stuff done by the end of the week, which fits
Nice.
in great with a busy kid who's doing high school and college at the same time. But
Wow.
yeah, he that kid, against my judgment, decided he's graduating a semester early. Decided to go to high school all day, take a college physics course 3 nights a week. Then I told him, don't do this. He's taking Calc 3 online at a different college. And I'm like, not to
Goodness.
mention everything he's in is either dual credit or some type of condensed AP course. I'm like, what are you thinking? So now he's a little stressed.
Wow.
Plus, going to the gym 4 days a week, Muay Thai and martial arts somehow 2 to 3 times a week, and being down here doing his job. So he's basically busy like 17 hours a day.
Oh,
And
I'm getting
like,
exhausted just hearing about it.
well, you did it to yourself. And he's been in a, I mean, he's accepted the responsibility. He's doing okay, but we'll see. He's got 12 weeks left.
Wow. Well, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, you say, hey, he's making, I look at that as impressive. I'm like, wow. I mean, quite a few of my kids are doing really well too, but they ain't bogged down like that. Like that's madness. But
Well,
you know what?
because, I mean, there's an element of wisdom by not doing that to yourself, too.
Wow. Sure. My youngest daughter is running herself ragged like that, going to school, working full time, doing all, and I'm just like, woof, like, I'm glad you could do it because I certainly can't. But
Yeah,
I mean, I run a pretty busy schedule too, but
sure.
like not like that. I'm just like, whoa. But anyway, what else do people need to know about aquariums here? What?
Maintenance. How about anything about maintenance? So, for instance, again, be really careful when you hear somebody say you don't need to do water changes in your
Uh,
aquarium and you don't need to have a filter and all this stuff. And that can work, but you have to understand the very narrow and limited use application for that and look at the way their tanks are stocked and how many plants they have. Because if you're stocking tanks the way that you have behind you, the way that I have behind me, there's going to be some maintenance required, some type of minimal amount of water changes necessary. So, the big thing when it comes to fish keeping is this, as you mentioned from the beginning, it's not a set it and forget it hobby. You are going to spend time. Maybe you've got to scrape some algae, maybe do a little gravel vacuuming, some water changing. It's going to take some time. You're going to be in that tank, preferably almost weekly, if not every other week.
you want to know, this is going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but you want to know one of the best things. I don't even know if you're aware of this. I wouldn't be aware of this if somebody else didn't tell me. You and I have been saying for a very long time, we've been trying to persuade people not to buy into that idea of no water change, no filter, no that. Again, both of us both of us say it absolutely can be done. It does work in certain circumstances. You and I have been saying the same thing for as long as I can remember knowing each other. And there was a time there for a while where nobody believed us. It was, it's not that they didn't believe us, but everybody disagreed with us. It was
Yeah.
all the rage. Everybody was talking about it in the social media world. But you want to know what's starting to happen now? They're
They're learning.
starting, yeah, they're starting to figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And this is not me sitting here trying to trash the people who do that. I know you're not either. It's
No,
just, it's just like it's not for everybody.
no.
And the people who it's not for are finally figuring that out. And
Yeah.
it's actually a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well, if you had just listened to me or Jason or anybody else that was saying that, but
Yeah.
anyway,
And again, it's perfectly fine, but then recognize the type of aquarium that you're going to have. And if you like that, then you're set. Who cares? And I say this as somebody who, right now, every tank that we have upstairs, so this is the fish room gallery area, there are one, two, three, four, five, six, I think 7 or 8 aquariums, small ones upstairs. Only one of them has any type of filtration. The rest of them are no filter, no air stones, nothing, heavily planted, lightly stocked, don't have to really do a water change in it. I think maybe Joanna, those are mostly her tanks. She might, well, I know she fills them, she tops them off, but I don't know if she's actually doing any kind of a water change, maybe once every couple of months just to do it. So it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying limited use case. And if you like
Right.
it, great. But most people want to do things like you've got behind you, not necessarily on a huge scale like that, or like we've got going on over here. Guess what? That takes a little bit more work.
Yeah. It's just a glorious thing that people are trying to, or people are finally
Yeah.
figuring that out. So it's not set and forget it. It requires patience. It's expensive. It's a lot of work. And your kid is probably not going to take care of it as well as he promised or she promised. What else?
Well, I
I
think we
mean,
should focus on the why the heck everything we've talked about is bad. Why
it's
the
true.
heck is anybody even going to bother with this? I mean, you're basically talking everybody out of the hobby. I pretty much said so. Uh, it goes back to one of the statements you made at the very beginning, and that is very rarely does somebody buy a tank and just stop. They usually go a little crazy. And the reason for that is this is one of the hobbies. And people make an argument, and I think it's a sound argument. Why do we call fish keeping a hobby? We don't say the dog keeping hobby or the cat keeping hobby, right? Hey, I'm in the snake keeping hobby, but it's always the fish keeping hobby. Anyway, when you have fish, it is one of the few things where you are setting up their entire world. Their entire ecosystem is controlled by you. Their water parameters, their surroundings, their other inhabitants. And it's so rewarding to do stuff like you've got behind you, to do stuff like I have behind me, and see these ecosystems thriving, live plants and fish interacting, and everybody's getting along, and none of the fish are sick, and just watching them grow. I mean, you know as well as anybody the joy, and especially in the cichlid keeping world, of watching a female fish spit out those fry at the very earliest time zero, and you watch them grow up, and then you take a few of what you think are maybe going to be the best looking fish and you keep them, and
Hmm.
you've watched that fish from the time basically it was an egg in its mother's mouth until it gets to a point where now it's showing its color and coming into its own. And now it's like the tank boss and it's showing off and it rules that tank, but it does it with a semi but firm, gentle hand. And then you see, like, ooh, you know what? It's gotten a little older. The colors are fading a little bit. Oh, is that a bent spine? The fins aren't looking quite as good as they used to. And then eventually it gets old and it dies. And that is one of the few things in fish keeping that we enjoy. I mean, you're not doing that with a dog. Most of us are not watching, oh, the puppy was poor. Let me keep it until the very, very end.
Right.
You get it as a puppy, but it's already been 3 months into its life. And that's over a longer period of time. But this is what you do in fish keeping. You can keep fish for years and watch them interact in the ecosystem that you've built. If it's a good ecosystem, they thrive. And if it's a bad one, that's also on you. And the fish pay the price for that, but it's very rewarding and it's relaxing. Right? I think
Hmm.
that's the other thing too, is it's not only rewarding. If I turn my chair on, I look at these tanks, you get lost in there. You get lost in their world, the world that you've created. And that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm certainly not dumb enough to go political on this podcast, nor will I. But regardless of where you stand politically, you cannot deny the fact that at the time of recording this podcast, today is Friday, October 3rd, just so everybody knows, the world's messed up right now. It's messed up for men, women, every race, every. It's just this world is tough. It's tough right now, and it's been tough, and it's going to continue to be tough for a while. It's so nice to be able to detach from that world and be able to look into these and just wonder what is that fish thinking? Like, that's pretty neat. The fish is freaking out because I'm walking by. Is it because they're excited? Is it because they think I'm going to feed them? Is it just because they recognize a big blurry thing? It's fun to think about that and to just stare in there and watch that and Lacarai biker just go back and forth like you've seen throughout this whole, well, every episode we do. It's fun. It's neat. And you can do something little, something minor that has a huge impact, and it just makes your whole day with this kind of hobby. Case in point, I was playing around with the lights on this tank. I don't know if you noticed that this tank looks dramatically different than it did on our last batch. I found it. I finally found the setting that I love, and I'm so happy. Like I'm watching us on the screen here as we're recording, and every time I look over there, I'm like, oh, it looks so good now compared to the way it did before. Little things like that, to be able to escape the madness that is our world right now. It's just a beautiful thing. And I wish I was out here more than I am right now. It makes me sad that I'm not, because every time I come out here, it makes me, it does bring that calmness and that zen, if you will. And that's a beautiful thing. And I do, you're right. We've been very negative in this. I'm glad we had the opportunity here as we wrap it up to talk about some of the positives, because there's a lot.
There's one other thing too. Fish keeping is weird in the sense that we build community in fish keeping. I mean, if you're watching this right now, you're part of a fish keeping community. And if you want to be an even bigger part of that, check out the live streams we do. Primetime Aquatics, Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. KG Tropicals on Fridays. You're at 7. Are you 7 p.m. Eastern?
8 p.m. Eastern.
8
so whatever
p.m.
that is for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we have these communities where you can interact with people in the chat, and you go to the events, whether it's a club sponsored event, the Keystone Clash just happened, the OCA in Strongsville, Ohio is about to happen, ACA, Aquashellas, and you get around people who share this hobby and these building up ecosystems. And they're some of the nicest people. As much as we joke around about people getting all bent out of shape about their favorite, filter, most of those people are just keyboard warriors. But when you go to the event, when you go to the live streams and you go to these events, you're meeting people probably a lot more like you, where you just want to share a common interest. And that's a lot of fun to be able to talk about that. And like I said, they're some of the nicest people in the world.
It's true. I mean, you and I have been together at a ton of Aquashellas. You've been to more than I have, but we've met thousands of people. I mean, probably tens of thousands of people. There's only one person that I would have probably appreciated not meeting. The point is, of thousands, there's one. And it's just because the person was nasty. I mean, said the horrible things, and surprised me. But anyway, you're right. The community as a whole, everywhere where I've ever been with fish keepers, has just been fun, pleasant. Everybody's wonderful about it. And so, and it's because they know exactly what we've been saying these last few minutes of how impactful this hobby can be on someone's life and how it can change people's lives. I know people that have avoided pushing the delete button on their lives because of this hobby. I know people who it has saved them from deep, dark depression. I mean, I could tell you story after story, and I'm sure you've got them too, of this impacting people's lives that way. So regardless of the things that we said, Jason was very harsh on some things. Annie drives a Subaru.
So take that.
But in all seriousness, we've said a lot of things that could be construed as negative, but overall, this hobby is one of the most positive, beautiful things ever. If you're entertaining the idea of doing it, you should. Forget about what Jason said earlier. No, kidding. Do the research, be prepared so that you don't make the mistakes, and know what you're getting into. This is a hobby that you will realize calling it a hobby is actually a disservice. It's a lifestyle, not just a hobby. Hobby is building plastic planes. This is a real thing here. This is a lifestyle, not a hobby. There you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Well said. I think on that note, we bid our farewell. We would like to thank everybody once again for hanging out with us. And again, hey, comment section. things you think people should know that we left out. I'm sure there's like 1,025 things that we left out. Let us know what we missed. As always, really appreciate you being here. We will see you again, same time, same place next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Trucks are always better than Subarus. Just saying.